This is it, guys. The 2025 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Three drivers fighting for the Formula One World Championship at the last possible race. Shades of 2010. And we also have an intense championship fight that goes down at this circuit. And we also see Max Verstappen in the mix. Shades of 2021. There's a lot happening. There's a lot of history involved. There's a lot of feelings that we're all going to be feeling this weekend. And it's going to be a weekend we remember for years. It could go down, Kunal, as Lando Norris's crowning moment as Formula One world champion. Does that sit right with you?
Yes, it sits right with me because the rules say whoever leads after Abu Dhabi is the rightful world champion. Right. When I say rightful, I don't mean deserving because we've already had the discussion around who's the most deserving world champion. But if Lando Norris wins, there are two things to keep in mind. First is after winning the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix last year, Soumil, Lando's radio messages were next year is going to be my year. Could well be his year after this year's Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, just that probably you would have seen the year going around differently. You would have hoped that he would have wrapped it much earlier. But if he does win, or in fact, even if Oscar Piastri wins, they could be the 35th world champion in the history of Formula One. How exciting is that?
Well, more exciting to me is the fact that we could have a champion that's different from the rest. Like this is going to be the first Gen Z champion of sorts. If Lando Norris wins the world championship, we haven't had that. Like Max is there. Max, of course, belongs to a similar age group, but has always been different.
You
Lando, on
mean
the other
Max is
hand,
Gen Z, but not Gen Z, my
yeah,
goodness.
yeah, exactly. Lando is properly Gen Z, though. I think he properly represents so many of us who grew up playing video games, watching motorcycles and cars, streaming and enjoying social media content and Twitch and the likes. This feels like it could be the victory of Gen Z if Lando Norris wins. And we're nearly there. The permutations for it are quite interesting. All Lando Norris has to do to become world champion this weekend is finish in the top three. If he finishes there, it's game over. However, if Lando is fourth, he needs Max to not win for him to be world champion. If Lando is sixth, he needs Oscar not to be P1 to win. Basically, finish in the top three, Lando, and it's all good for you. And on like in a normal day, Kunal, rather I should rephrase this. On a normal day, that's not problematic. But as McLaren have proven in Qatar, sometimes they don't have normal days.
Yes, that's the thing. Will they have a normal weekend, McLaren and Lando Norris? And I put both of them in the same box because each time we've seen Lando Norris alongside Max Verstappen, we've seen he has trembled. He made a mistake in Q3. He's had an issue with the Las Vegas start. He had an issue with the start in Qatar as well. So that pressure is being seen. And McLaren, what will they do? Luckily for them, Abu Dhabi has the least number of safety cars than most of the races we've been to, even though you had a very controversial safety car. Abu Dhabi's safety car rate is fairly little. So at least they're not going to be challenged on those counts. Should be a standard single stopper. So again, they don't have to do too many things, which begs me to ask the question, how can Red Bull and Max Verstappen, apart from being on the pace, put that pressure, that continued pressure on McLaren and Lando Norris? Because they know that McLaren and Lando Norris are quick, but they are not as quick. Or maybe I will put it this way: they know that McLaren and Lando Norris are quick, but they are breakable under that pressure. So
Yeah.
what all will they do? Will Tapegate continue? Will they, hope that Yuki Tsunoda comes to the fight? Will they hope that, George Russell, could he come to the fight? The last time we were at a hot race, Singapore, we saw what he did. So they'll be hoping a lot of these factors come in. Could Kimi Antonelli, who's become very good friends with Max Verstappen, be in the fight? He's had, again, it's the same stat outside of Europe, and Antonelli is doing very well. So we need other drivers in the fight, and how can Red Bull engineer a lot of that pressure onto Norris and McLaren? And unfortunately for Oscar, the conversation is going to be between Norris and
Yeah.
Max Verstappen. But like you said, let's point it out. So the last time the race in Formula One, the last time the title in Formula One went down to the wire was Abu Dhabi 2021. The last time more than two drivers were in contention for the F1 title was in 2010. Okay. Max Verstappen, if he overcomes this 104-point deficit to be world champion, it'll be the largest deficit overcome in the history of Formula One. And if Max wins, it'll be his fifth title on the trot, something only Michael Schumacher has done before, and he will equal one Manuel Fangio. Interestingly, since you love history, Soumil, the last driver who was not a Hamilton or not a Verstappen to win the title was 2016, Nico Rosberg. So fairly, 10 years ago, if you put it that way. And the last team not to be Red Bull or Mercedes to win the title was Braun GP in 2009. So McLaren and Lando are out to write a lot of history this weekend, should it really be his crowning moment.
It would. It would most likely be. That's what we're all expecting. But I like the point that you made about Red Bull putting McLaren under pressure because they will. At Red Bull, the mindset is us against the world. We saw how aggressive they were in 2021, statements to the media, small little games that they play quite often, mind games to get into the head of the other team and driver. And to some extent, you might argue they work, as we saw with Lando Norris at the Las Vegas GP, Max's warm up lap strategy and everything it did to Lando. So Red Bull will be piling on the pressure to McLaren. It's this weekend we finally find out how thick of a skin Lando Norris has and how thick of a skin McLaren really has. All they're going to do is absorb it and be like, both our drivers will figure it out. And so it's down to both their drivers to figure it out. Max, I'm not too sure he'll have that much pace to be able to win on his own in dirty air. However, he has an ace up his sleeve that can really pester McLaren. And that is his race starting ability. He's incredible. He's absolutely incredible. I believe, Kunal, if he's somewhere in the top three, there is a legitimate chance he could get past at least one of them. And boom, suddenly we have a race.
We do. He's also going to use his new power unit, right? He swapped it in Qatar, so he's going to put that new power unit, the one that he got on reliability grounds in which race was it when he came all the way from the back? Interlagos,
Into
the famous
Lagos.
race. Yes, right. But one more thing down for history that I'm looking for in the Verstappen, Norris, and Piastri battle: can all three drivers cross the 400 points mark? We've seen Lando Norris is there, but Piastri and Verstappen are not too far away either. And you mentioned what Max Verstappen needs to do to be in the top three and make something out of it, and that's what we always know him to do. 10 out of the last 12 races, Sommel, have been won from pole position, and strangely enough, the last 10 races on the trot have been won from pole, and 12 out of the last 12 races have been won from the front row. Okay. And I think it was Kimi Raikkonen 2012 when he said, I know what I'm doing, leave me alone, was when he won outside of the front row from fourth place. So Max Verstappen has everything to play for by putting it on the front row, just off it, and then going and chasing the McLarens. And trust me, he doesn't need to chase one. He has to do all it takes to chase both those McLarens. And we
But
know
you
Lando.
know, you know, right, Kunal? If you pass one McLaren, suddenly McLaren stop functioning. And then they've got to be fair to both their drivers.
and,
And
and
that could be their critical weakness. Trying to be fair to both of their drivers could well be McLaren's weakness this weekend.
It is. And imagine if that, everyone's talking on this scenario. What if Max is ahead? Somebody else is second. And there's a good chance George Russell could be second as well. Who's the
Yeah.
driver who scored the most points after the summer break? George Russell tied with Lando Norris. Say it's George Russell second, Oscar Piastri third, and Lando Norris fourth. Will they swap Piastri? Will they ask him to swap? And Piastri's, I get a feeling they will do that. And I get a feeling Piastri will also
No.
swap.
Come
Piastri,
on. Come on.
Piastri
That's not happening, Kunal. Like
if
all this
Piastri is out of
chatter.
contention by being third and Max is winning, he will step up to help Lando Norris. You want to bet? What are you betting on?
No, but it defeats the purpose, doesn't it? Like the drivers have to figure it out for themselves.
It
Is
does till they
is
are
my interpretation
mathematically
of
out of.
papaya rules incorrect in that regard?
No, your interpretation is correct, but till they are mathematically out of contention. Now let's
But would
imagine,
they be mathematically out of contention if a safety car comes and Orlando's PU bursts? I mean, what do you do then? Like,
or imagine if Max is winning and his PU goes, And this happens just after Oscar, has let Lando through. Will they tell Lando, okay, Lando, sorry, but now
So
you
we
need to get.
told Oscar, yeah. So sorry, Lando. So we promised Oscar that he'll be passed if that's the case. So now we've got to make our promise. Like, will they do a Monza? Basically, if slow pit stops can be reversed, can a power unit failure for another car that cause McLaren to? I know we're building up on a lot of layers, but stay with us. What if what if there's a power unit failure for a car ahead? What if Oscar is out of mathematical contention at that point and McLaren asks him to swap around and he does, and Lando's ahead, he's about to seal it, and then the PU failure happens, and then suddenly Oscar is back in contention. Will they then ask Lando to go back and let Oscar to come past because a PU failure is just part of racing and they've got to make sure that their second driver is protected from it? I don't know. Like, is so you see the way we're speaking, how complicated it is. It's not me who's complicating the thought. It's just how complicated it has become by having papaya rules. It's not on me. I'm not taking the blame for this, guys. Sorry.
Absolutely. And let me add some more complication. Oscar Piastri is going to miss FP1 in Abu Dhabi because of the
Tell me about
mandatory.
it.
Can you imagine? He's going into the title decider and he's going to have 1 hour less of track time. Okay.
And
So
before you guys get on us and be like, oh, it's all biased. McLaren is just favoring Lando. In Mexico City, it was Lando's car that was driven by a rookie. I think it was Pato O'Ward who drove over there. And in this case, it's Oscar Piastri who has to let go of his car. So it's pre-planned.
it's pre-planned. But
And they
I
would
would
have
say it's
hoped that
bad
Oscar would
planning.
have sealed the championship by Abu Dhabi, honestly. But
Or they would have hoped that Lando would have sealed it by Abu Dhabi, so it wouldn't matter who. Can you imagine? They had so many races and they chose Abu Dhabi. Well, could be
yeah,
anything. But you mentioned Max Verstappen. He's had 4 out of the last 5 pole positions have been Max. 4 out of the last 5 race wins have been Max. Do you believe that this car that Max has is capable of challenging them? Because that's the other uncertainty, right? What sort of Red Bull is going to show up? Will they be, challenging from the get-go, or will they have yet another troubled Friday and then, try and bounce back on the Saturday? I would love to see them be on the pace from
but
the
they have
first
time,
practice
Kunal.
session.
That's the thing. This time they have time. Yeah, they have the luxury of time. Oh, they can do 3 free practice sessions Red Bull Racing and have a good, fun gala time figuring out the setup. And it's certain the kind of window that they are in, Max will be hunting the McLarens down. It will happen. His setup may be off on Friday. He will complain about balance. He will say a few things. He may qualify probably worst case outside, worst case in the top 5. Like, but I don't think he's going lower than that. I think Max is definitely going to be right up there, chasing the McLarens and honestly, making them feel what it takes to be a world champion. That's what I want Max to do. If he doesn't win this weekend, I want him to absolutely grill the McLaren drivers and whoever becomes world champion, Oscar Orlando, I want them to feel the pressure that it takes to become world champion. And if even Lando becomes world champion or if even Oscar becomes it, I'm fine. I'm totally okay because they
Yeah.
felt it. They went through it. They fought for it and then they got there. And Max will put that pressure on.
And Max will make them earn it the
Yeah,
hard way. That is also
exactly.
pretty serious because how much risk will Max be willing to take? Will he also trouble the stewards? He knows that one of the weaknesses of the FIA can be wheel to wheel racing. Who's the
Oh,
one driver who can take them on the edge? Who has taken them on the edge? We've seen the FIA also feel the pressure the last time it went down to the wire in Abu Dhabi. Could that be one of those weaknesses that happens not just to McLaren but to Formula One overall? Have you thought of that? Imagine, there's turn 5 outside chance, turn 6,
are you
turn
saying,
9.
Kunal, that we could have a 2021 scenario all over again? Not by having the race being manipulated, but by having something outside the track take more prevalence than what happens on track. It's a possibility, guys. Let's not forget the rules are under scrutiny by the drivers. Carlos Sainz has been very vocal about it. Max Verstappen has always said, I don't like it, but I just follow it as they are. And he could well push the limits. You're right, Kunal. That could well happen. Technical issues could decide this championship. Some stewarding decisions could decide this championship. It could be wheel to wheel contact that decides this championship. It could well be papaya rules that decides this championship. It could be a poor qualifying that could settle it. Because what if Red Bull don't have the right setup on Saturday? and Max Verstappen ends up outside, like maybe P7. I know he'll still be back. He's Max Verstappen. But what if the points gap is just way too much for him to scale up on Sunday? Anything like so many things could go down.
Yeah,
Hell,
and you mentioned qualifying. Qualifying is absolutely important here. We, like I said, 10 races out of 12 from pole position, and it's a record equaling 10 past races that have been won from pole. Can you think of which other circuit actually has so much pole dependency?
not even Monaco, because Monaco, I think P2 has won, I think 3 or 4 times in Monaco as well from the last 10
Yeah.
years. So not
The other
even
one could,
Monaco.
yeah, and the other one could be Barcelona, right? With so
Yeah.
much pole dependency. And then the front row has finished in the same order in 7 out of the last 10 races. So that qualifying is so vital. And for Red Bull to get it right in qualifying, including Lando Norris to not make mistakes in qualifying. And then the other question is, will it be low grip? Will it be high grip? Will the heat bother Oscar
Yeah.
Piastri? Because that's been another deciding factor. Because in 4 out of the last 9 races, one, two, three has finished in that same order as well. So what it means is you can get stuck finishing with where you start off, and
Yeah.
that is what the
What?
teams will have in mind to exercise more risk in the race to
Just
finish
ask.
out of positions.
I'm getting so excited, but just ask Fernando Alonso about it. Here, same scenario, 2010. He got stuck behind Vitaly Petrov and he learned how hard it is to pass at Abu Dhabi. That could happen. You could see two championship contenders stuck behind a midfield car that just does not want to let anyone go. Who's going to be Vitaly Petrov this year, guys? Is it going to be Fernando Alonso? Alonso's too nice. Alonso's too nice. Liam Lawson. Liam Lawson is the kind of guy who will absolutely upset the championship battle just because, hey, you're not going to pass me for fun. I think that could be interesting. I want to see
Could
Liam
he
Lawson.
could he finally be the teammate that Max Verstappen wanted? He started the year as Max Verstappen's teammate, right? So,
Oh,
but
that
that's
happened,
right.
remember?
Zach Brown's biggest concern has been Racing Bulls and Red Bull Racing having the same owner, which is Red Bull Energy Drinks. He thinks that's a conflict of interest. Could that conflict of interest play out? Isaac Hartjar, Liam Lawson, Yuki Tsunoda, three Red Bull drivers. Could they help out Max? They will throw everything at it that they can, and they should. And it's legal, it's lawful. Does it go against the spirit of racing, spirit of the regulations? I don't believe so. They are there
No.
in their own might. And who's to also say, could Red Bull saying Kimi let Lando by in Qatar, was that their way of already putting the message out there saying, if you guys collab and mess up with us, you guys being Mercedes and McLaren, we are there watching you? Was it one of those kind of scenarios that you just called out a scenario so that it doesn't happen in Abu Dhabi?
So, are you saying we're going to get to see a proxy war? Racing Bulls trying to fight on behalf of Red Bull and Mercedes trying to fight on behalf of McLaren? A
this
proxy
this
war in the championship finale? Like,
this
will
could
all
well
Mercedes teams unite and stand up against the might of the two Red Bulls? So, is it going to be Williams, Mercedes, McLaren all called into action to
Aston
save
Martin.
Lando Norris and his world? Is this like an Avengers kind of thing? What is this? What's going on? All the Avengers assemble to make Lando Norris the world champion.
Can you imagine all that could be needed to make Lando Norris a world champion
Oh
because he's not
God.
able to seal it by himself, unfortunately.
Oh
Of
man.
course, we're making fun, we're
We're
having
making,
jokes.
yeah. But the jokes have a reason behind them. We wouldn't make those jokes if we didn't see what we saw. But it's a very good time to talk about legacy. It's a very good time to talk about legacy because on Sunday we could have two drivers walking out as new Formula One world champions: Oscar Piastri and potentially Lando Norris. Most likely Lando Norris. Let's talk about that. What would the legacy of Lando Norris as a world champion be? It's going to be a big moment. He's going to be the next British world champion after Lewis Hamilton, after Jenson Button, and after Nigel Mansell and everyone who's followed, after Damon Hill as well. Let's not forget. I think he represents modern Britain, Kunal. I think he really does represent modern Britain, and he represents so much of what the Gen Z is all about. I think he is very, very rightfully going to be the face of modern Formula One. Do you think he is, or rather, do you think he has done enough to call himself a drivers' world champion, though?
We've been discussing how he's been challenged, how he's fallen, how he's risen up to the challenge. Beyond a point, these conversations have to stop because If we remember, KK Rosberg won one race in his season to become a drivers' world champion. So what matters is who's had the most points after Abu Dhabi. He will be remembered as somebody who just narrowly crossed the line, who was challenged by Max Verstappen, by Oscar Piastri, who was probably even favored by McLaren. But these are not new narratives in the world of Formula One, Soumil. I would say we just got to accept him as a champion. You know, these things about it represents New Britain and Gen Z. Unfortunately, I don't feel any of that. I'm just like, are you a quick driver who can handle pressure and win races and win world championships? He's proving to have done that. And you know, that's all that matters. The way he has lifted himself this year. Imagine this. Both the McLaren drivers knew at the start of the year this is going to be their year. Both the drivers said, we're going to go out and get the drivers' championship. Oscar managed it extremely well in the first half. Lando's managed it extremely well in the second half. And it just so happens that Lando's going to be the one who will narrowly cross the line to win it. And maybe after a couple of years, we wouldn't even check about legacy. All that. It's like
No, we
Jensen
will.
Button. Does he have a legacy? 2009.
Are you
The
kidding
legacy.
me?
One
He
second. 2000.
does.
He does, yes. But like we've discussed on our Pits to Podium show, is every former world champion a legend of the sport, right?
I think Lando
2000
does have a chance, though. I think Lando does have a
to win
chance
more or to be remembered as a legend?
to be remembered as a legend because of what the first world championship can do to him. It opens people up, guys. Max Verstappen has said this. You feel less pressure. You feel like you've arrived. You feel confident. It's it's validation, isn't it? It's the world looking at you and acknowledging that you are someone. You no
So
longer have anything to prove. And for some like James
absolutely.
Hunt, that can be it because they've proven everything. But for the others like Max Verstappen, it can be a way to drive hunger. Like it can increase their hunger. Like now that I've proven that I am here, I want to go get more. I'm very interested to see what kind of champion Lando Norris will become because he's likely to be a champion. And I'm very keen to see what he does from here on. Abhijit says, Kunal, 2025 world champion, that'll be his legacy. Nobody remembers all. They remember, sorry, bit of a hazy one. Let me just read that properly. 2025 world champion, that'll be his legacy. Nobody remembers. All they remember is the world championship. And that's exactly what you said.
Yes, and even Privi, Lando absolutely deserves to be the champion. But when a beast like Max exists, you always got to rethink. And I guess this is with legacy. And to me, I hope this takes away the nervousness that comes along with Lando Norris. Okay, and the first win opens that up about himself. But that we'll only know once it happens and once he continues and he actually has something to fight for next year. But what I meant about Jensen Button is 2009 will be remembered more for Braun GP and what they managed, okay, rather than just Jensen Button. Was Jensen Button a talented driver? Absolutely, yes. You know, if there were mixed conditions, is there a driver I would bank on anyone more than Jensen? No, but you know, does every world
I like that
champion?
you're now defending my favorite driver because I get to speak to him this Saturday, guys.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
fantastic.
I get to speak to Jensen Button this Saturday. And there's so much I'm about to ask him. I'm about to ask him about adaptability, the 2026 cars, and what it's going to be like. The three keys to be adaptable, because he was a very adaptable driver. Let's not forget the team he's most excited for, because he's also raced for Cadillac in the sports car world, and he's an ambassador for Williams. And particularly about driving in Formula One while raising a family, because that's what Jensen has cited as his reason for quitting racing full time. Jensen Button, by the way, has officially announced his full time racing retirement, not even sports cars, because he wants to focus on raising a family. And Max Verstappen, Kunal, is raising a family and is still fighting for a Formula One World Championship. This legacy will just skyrocket. I think it's already in the clouds. I think it goes in the stratosphere if somehow Max Verstappen is able to win this Drivers' World Championship in 2025.
I think it's going to be most insane. He will, you know, he will be remembered by humans as the best driver ever in Formula One. This whole goat of this era, goat of that era is probably going to be goat of all goats, including then the AI. Remember, AI runs a tool to gives you the best rankings. I think Max is definitely, Max is most definitely going to be on top of that
Not
list because
Michael.
I would say Max with what he's doing. Michael inspired a different generation of fans. He also bored a big generation of fans, much like Max has done, much like Lewis has done. But of course, there's a big recency bias into saying that Max, if he overcomes that 104-point deficit, which he already is so close to doing, it's going to be the most insane comebacks in the history of sport, not just in the history of Formula One, I would say. But
Yeah.
there is a compliment coming our way. There is Javier who's saying, just chiming in to say, I love your shows. Blessings from Los Angeles. Thank you, Javier.
Thank you, Javier. More
Yes.
comments. There's a lot more comments. People are waking up. Good morning, everyone. Kunal's in Dubai. I'm in Mumbai. I'm getting, I'm getting late for work, but you guys are just starting your day, so we should enjoy my lateness and celebrate the fact that we do have a world champion to decide. Anime says, I feel in hindsight, if Lando wins the 2025 World Drivers' Championship, he will be remembered with McLaren besides. His stay in the team for so many years, having no sponsors, being called GP2 engine. Yeah, I think so. That's perfect. That is the legacy of Lando Norris. Sticking by with McLaren when they needed him the most. Because Red Bull Racing tried to poach him. Dr. Helmut Marko revealed on our show that he did contact Lando and they did want him to come through, but Lando chose to stay with McLaren. His reasoning, I want to win world championships with this team. He's done it with the constructors not twice. Go on, Lando. Finish the story. Get the drivers world champ. We don't have favorites here, but it's just cool to root for someone who has a backstory like that. We're rooting for all 19 Formula One drivers. We are who
I
who
like when
who
you
who
say
finish who finish
19.
a race and don't crash and the gravel trap on their own on the formation lap.
I think I just put up a comment about that. Lance Stroll barrels into the field and Carlos Sainz gets P1. Will that be Williams's legacy for the season? I would say
Hey,
that's also.
interesting to shout out Williams. They've sealed P5 in the Constructors' World Championship, Kunal, and they walk in with no pressure.
And imagine where they've come from. Williams went through the absolute lows of low of not even having a car ready for preseason testing on time. They've had significant number of management changes. They've had the Williams family come and go. They've got Doralton Capital come. They had Jos Capito come from Volkswagen and including McLaren. And then finally James Vowles has come and turned that team around. They had Logan Sargent in the car last year.
Yeah,
Soumil. So they've gone from Sergeant Albin to Colapinto Albin and now Albin and Sainz. They've had two halves of a season. Albin pulled the load in the first half while Carlos Sainz was settling in. And now Carlos Sainz, two podiums in a year when he said, get used to not seeing me on the podium, guys. This is what he said after leaving Ferrari. So I think Williams is the one team that has definitely become an emotion in 2025, and I can't wait to see how they go in 2026 because they actually stopped working on the 2025 car many, many months ago, Somal.
yeah. It's been a while, and I'm so excited to think of what they can do for 26. We'll talk about 26 in a lot more depth, by the way, guys, on the Inside Line F1 podcast. Winter content will be insane. We will have lots of guests, hopefully a few events, hopefully a few F1 drivers coming around. There'll be a few things for us to showcase to you folks, and you'll of course be involved in everything. We'll be doing live streams so that we can discuss Formula One, some chill sessions so that we can talk about 26 and who our favorite drivers are, or our observations, or our favorite liveries, and all these sorts of cool things that we will do together. So make sure you are following us on Instagram and YouTube, both places. But yeah, that's that. I think more comments. Lando's what Charles Leclerc hopes to be right now, says Animesh. Very interesting. And Abhijit has the comment of the day. He says, if you're Petrov, Glock, Latifi, or Piquet Jr., you don't even need a world championship to be called a legend of the sport. Salute, my friend. That is comment of the day. Wow.
And here's adding more context. You just said Liam Lawson could be that Petrov,
Chaos
and
agent. Chaos agent.
somebody has a chance to be remembered. You remember Glock, right? Somebody has a chance to do a Glock. Somebody has a chance to do a PK this weekend. Will they? Um, I don't mean to say that there should be manipulation, but just adding to what more could add to the pressure for Lando Norris and McLaren. Here's an interesting question from Pricky Preview saying, can we say 2025 was a golden year for rookies?
It
Oh,
was.
yes, absolutely.
One of my major fears about Formula One which I now fear about MotoGP, is the lack of really exciting quality young talent. And remember, until this year, in fact, we had 2 consecutive years of the grid being the same, almost the same, maybe just one change here or there. Literally no change. All the oldies, all the veterans, all there for the longest time. And I was wondering, like many others, like, is this it? Do we not have any youngsters? Is Formula 2 failing? Like, what are we doing? And suddenly this year, Kunal, this crop of drivers gives me hope about the future of Formula 1, because the new fans who are coming in are suddenly Ollie Behrman fans or Kimi Antonelli fans, or they're Gabriel Bortoleto fans, a bit lesser of them, more Brazilian, those lot. But they are following these younger drivers. They are acknowledging them. And in the future, they will go down as fan favorites. Isn't that what we want once Max leaves or once Lewis leaves?
Somebody's got to pick up those legacy as well, those legacies that could leave. And we've always seen that. A hero has always been replaced by two, if that's what we call it. Michael could go. Fernando will go at some point. Lewis will
Yuki
go.
Tsunoda will go.
Yuki Tsunoda will go. Unfortunately, the 2026 driver lineups are finally finalized. Arvid Lindblad, the Indo-Swedish British driver, makes his debut with Racing Bulls next year, and I like that. Red Bull Racing are still always churning on. Like Dr. Helmut Marko said on our show that Arvid is the next champion that they are banking on, Soumil. And we are going to get to work with Arvid in the off season. So lots to talk about. But
Yes.
the one thing I want to talk about, the last race of 2025 is also the end of several eras in Formula One, the end of the hybrid turbo power unit era. There will be a new power unit next year. The end of the ground effects era in Formula One. It's given us the closest fields for 2 consecutive seasons. That itself is also the end of an era. A couple of tenths and you're 5, 7 positions down. What else is ending? The end of the DRS. We are not going to
Yeah.
have the DRS from next year, the wretched
Let's
DRS.
celebrate. Let's celebrate. I think we should throw a party. We should throw a party. We should, guys. Let's celebrate the end of the DRS. Flap open party. Or, yeah,
Flap shut.
the flap shut. Yeah, the flap shut party. Yeah. We
Yeah.
should we should commemorate it with a donut around the final corner of Melbourne, because that's what happened. Remember, Kunal, to one of your drivers when he accidentally kept the DRS open in the corner.
Yes. Unfortunately, right? One of those things. So the end of the DRS as well, the end of Sauber after 32 years of racing in Formula One. Sauber will no longer be called Sauber. It'll be called the Audi Formula One team from the 2026 Formula One season. It's easy to remember their stats because they've all had just, under all the names, they've had one race win. It was in Canada with Robert Kubica
Yes.
and, 28 podiums, if I remember reading it right, because I said that's the end of an era. And we've had Peter Sauber, not on the show because he prefers to speak in German, but having conversations with us. And Sauber started off from the garage of his parents' home in Switzerland. Sommel, can you imagine one of those garagistas that have been around in Formula One? They're not a German team, but they've been a German works team for 3 German manufacturers:
Yes.
Mercedes Benz,
BMW.
BMW, now Audi. They brought Red Bull into Formula One. They got Felipe Massa and Kimi Raikkonen and so
Michael
many.
Schumacher. They gave Michael Schumacher a sports car debut. Sauber
Yes,
Mercedes.
Sauber Mercedes. So just the legend. I think that hits emotional. I'm going to go drink a coffee in the Sauber hospitality this weekend just
Ah,
for history. My goodness. I'm a little emotional about it, given how they've had such a fantastic story in the world of Formula One.
even Sergio Perez. Even Nick
Yeah.
Heidfeld. Robert Kubica. Sebastian Vettel. Sebastian Vettel got his first go with Sauber.
Who else
Uh,
here? Robert
Marcus
you
Ericsson, Indy 500 winner.
Charles
Antonio
Leclerc,
Giovinazzi, Le Mans winner. Charles Leclerc, Grand Prix winner. Oh, what a list.
150th race coming up for Charles Leclerc with Ferrari. But I still have this memory. 2019 British, no, 2019 Spanish Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc media session. There was one journalist who showed up, and that was me. Can you imagine back now? Now you go to Leclerc and there's like 150 journalists who show up. But that's how they all start. Like you spoke about these rookies, that somebody is always there and they bring a new fan base and they'll become these. legends of the sport. Hopefully, all of them winning races, winning world championships, entertaining us. But what else do we have? Can we do some predictions for this weekend?
We should, before the predictions, one
One
quick
second.
shout out.
1 second. No.
Yeah.
Before your quick shot, the end of an era of this SF25 as well.
Yes.
Ferrari almost
Yes.
winless.
Yes. 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 Thank God. Let's celebrate. Let's go out for a beer. Let's go out for some espresso. Let's go out for some champagne. Let's go out for some spaghetti. Let's do whatever. Let's celebrate. It's the end of the darkness. There is light at the end of the tunnel, or so we hope, because we're Ferrari fans. We've been doing it time and time and time again. But at least this tunnel ends. I don't know what happens at the start of the next one. Maybe there is more darkness, because that's always the case. But at least this one's over, Kunal. At least.
This is at one end of an era that a legion of fans have been waiting for, which is Lewis Hamilton in ground effects, even more so because Lewis
Yeah.
Hamilton's just struggled with this era of this concept of Formula One, the way lap times have to be extracted, and also the end of an era where the last race with only 10 teams and 20 drivers, says
Exactly.
Toshir, if that's a Norwegian pronunciation, but okay. Yeah, we're
Also,
gonna have 11 teams, 22 drivers next year.
and Picky Preview has the comment of the season, end of an error, SF25. What a forgettable car.
Oh,
Oh
yes.
my
And we'll
God.
speak 2026, Ishan. Everyone's wondering if 2026 could be Aston Martin's World Championship win, giving
Oh,
Alonso's tour. We'll
2026 is
talk about it.
it's always like we've been speaking about this
Subscribe
for
to us.
5 years now.
Yeah.
Like 2026 is going to be Aston Martin's year, and watch for them, and new factory, and Adrian Newey, and Christian Horner, and Honda, and they'll assemble the Avengers. They'll get Alonso. They'll get, I don't know, whoever. They'll build a whole Formula One universe, a mega whatever. Let us be patient, guys. Let time do its thing. We'll get there. We've been speaking about this for the longest time. But before predictions, one quick shout out to Red Bull Racing. A lot of people say, and I saw this opinion on Twitter, a lot of people say Red Bull are very quick at hiring and firing drivers, as they've done with Yuki Tsunoda. And some people attribute that to Red Bull being biased against people of color. I think that's the most rubbish take I've seen in Formula One history. Because in the last few years, think of how many people of color Red Bull Racing have brought into their fold. Alex Albon with Thai heritage, Sergio Perez with, well, not Mexican heritage, he is Mexican. Yuki Tsunoda coming from Japan, Isaac Hadjar having Algerian heritage. I think the first driver ever to represent his nation and his lineage to come to Formula One, and Arvid Lindblad representing India and Sweden. It's very cool, Red Bull Racing. It's very,
Yeah.
very cool.
Hats off to them. And that brings us to the end of this episode with predictions.
Yes, Kunal
This
has
is
to
the
go to the
most.
track. I have to go to office, so we should do predictions. Okay, guys, very quickly. Who is going to be the 2025 Formula One Drivers' World Champion? Drum roll. Max Verstappen.
Lando Norris.
You're going for the easy route, Kunal. You're going for the easy route. Do you not believe in Max?
Well, if Lando Norris doesn't win, the Lando Norris era would have stopped before it even started this race weekend. He has got to do whatever it takes to make this win happen. For all those drivers who had just a single shot to win and never made it win, that's not the list that we want to see Lando Norris being added at. For all the promise he's had, I hope he gets this for himself. And then I would love to see how he further develops into being a one-time winner, into hopefully a Formula One legend, as you call them, Soumil.
Yeah, I believe it'll be Max because I believe with more practice time, the Red Bulls will be much better. And in a pressure cooker situation, where nerves are going to be on the line, where you need a thick skin, I back nobody else more than I back Max Verstappen. Who do you back, guys? Let us know down in the comments below. It's been a fun episode, and we will be back 30 minutes after the race, almost immediately, to discuss everything on the Inside Line F1 podcast. There is a lot to talk to you guys about. It'll be fun. And Abhijit Chaudhary says, just to be an outlier, I'll say Piastri wins. Love that, man. Absolutely
But
love that.
let's do a top three. This is the most difficult top three to do in predictions. I know you said
Oh,
30 minutes after
Max.
the race.
Uh,
Go for it. Okay.
yeah,
Top three predictions.
Max. Oh, top three in the race.
Yeah,
Oh, oh, Max wins. Oscar second. I think it'll be George Russell third.
I would say Max wins, George Russell second, Oscar Piastri third. That's what's going to happen.
My God.
And watch out for that
So
opening
how do
lap.
you back Lando for the world champion? Like, it's
I was hoping you don't pick on that. No,
my God.
I
That's
mean,
that's gonna be tricky.
I also think as a driver, because I'm like, somebody's worked so hard. I hope they get to their final
Yeah,
frontier. They cross the final frontier. But I think that the opening lap is going to decide a lot of it. If there is harakiri on the opening lap, and there's a lot of chaos that usually happens in opening laps, that could just well define the world championship here. So I'm pretty crazy with how I predicted Lando for world championship, but still not in the top three of the race championship. Yeah.
it's crazy. Okay, last question. Last comment rather. Lando's 2024 Abu Dhabi drive shows he can handle pressure to an extent. What do you guys think? Well, it's different, Animesh, because Oscar and Max took each other out on the first lap.
No,
This
no, no. It
time,
was Max who took Oscar out. Don't say
yeah,
took each
Max.
other.
Yeah. Max took Oscar out. Correct. Max took Oscar out. Let's see. All I can say
Yes.
is let's see. Also, watch us on the Hindi F1 broadcast on Fan Code. Kunal and I are going to be there. So you will see us commentating live on the F1 season finale. The first time I get to call a season finale, the first time Kunal gets to call it, and the first time you get to listen to us. So it'll be fun.
Absolutely.
But we need to go. Thanks, guys. Comments have been incredible. Great episode. We'll catch you immediately after the race. Bye bye.